Final Fury tosses you into a VR brawler that's fast, technical, and packed with potential, though it's still warming up in early access. Don't worry, this game doesn't look as rough inside the headset as it does here. But in this video, I'll break down what you can expect from this early access title, starting with the theme. Final Fury is what you get when you pull a classic arcade fighter into VR and actually commit to the bit. The vibe is unmistakably Tekken meets Street Fighter, but instead of combos on a D-pad, it's footwork, timing, and sweat in your headset. But let's talk about the story, or the lack thereof. The characters look like they've got backstories. Like each of them could be straight out of those classic games at those arcades that are going extinct. Unfortunately, looks are where it ends because there's no backstory. There's an arcade mode, sure. You climb the ladder, beat a bunch of AI, and unlock something for your chosen fighter. It's not deep, but it works, and it has that old school grind structure that's more about the challenge than the lore. Still, I'd love to see some actual character arcs or cutscenes worked in later. This game's screaming for personality and context. Now, multiplayer is where things should get spicy. The idea of going toe-to-toe with another actual player in full VR is peak potential, but right now the matchmaker's pretty empty, or at least for me it was. Weekend events are supposed to help, but for anyone like me who works all weekend, it's an unfortunate reality. If you do make it into one of those brawls, drop a comment. I want to hear how it actually feels to fight another player. One thing I do have to praise though, you can keep playing single player while you wait in queue. It's smart, it's considerate, and more games should do that. So while the theme and narrative aren't fully fleshed out yet, the bones are there. But when it comes to the mechanics, Final Fury is way more technical than it first lets on. Movements and skills are activated by moving your arms in ways that make sense. Plus, every character has its own set of stats that genuinely change how you approach the fight. Mobility, range, power, it all matters. And it leads to real deal matchup dynamics. Pick a slow brawler against a fast, long-range character and you're gonna feel that difference. But even then, every character has some reach thanks to these projected ghost fists that extend your punches a bit. You're not helpless because technical skill carries weight here, meaning skill does still play its role. You can block too, simply by putting your hands up like you would in reality, and if someone's mindlessly swinging at you, you can hit a reversal, which creates an opening for you to take control. If they're doing the opposite and turtling up, you go for the grab. The whole thing ends up feeling like a VR remix of rock, paper, scissors, but with timing and positioning playing a huge role. For an early access title, the combat feels surprisingly enjoyable. Solid impact, clean animations, and most importantly, it respects your inputs. You can see the shape of something really polished here. And honestly, I can only imagine how chaotic and glorious this is going to be once multiplayer is actually populated because the mechanics are already in place. The stage just needs the fighters. Alright, now let's address the elephant in the room, the footage. If you're watching this thinking the visuals look a little rough, you're not alone. But the good news, like I said earlier, is that it doesn't look like that in headset. Inside the headset, things are definitely sharper and more coherent. Still not jaw-dropping, but leagues better than what the recordings suggest. I recorded this game the same way I record every other title, and this is just how it came out. Now, there's zero graphic settings to tweak, which is kind of a bummer. What you see is what you get. And while the character models hold up decently during gameplay, the backgrounds are kind of the weak link. At a distance, it feels like they slapped up some wallpaper sheets and called it a day. But this is supposed to have that classic arcade vibe, and in that case it makes sense. Plus, your focus stays glued to your opponent for 99% of the time. So unless you're stopping to admire the decor mid-fight, it's not a huge issue. I'd love to see some visual polish as the game progresses, but for now, the graphics are good enough not to break the immersion. Moving on, the audio in this game really sells the whole arcade fighter fantasy. From the moment you boot it up, the button clicks and menu swipes hit you with that retro arcade sound. It's got that crunchy, satisfying feedback that just makes everything feel punchier. Each character kicks off their match with a little intro line, stepping into the spotlight and flexing their attitude before the match really starts.
Electric, magnetic, kinetic. Let's get it.
It's subtle, but it helps breathe a bit of personality into a cast that's still waiting on proper backstories. And the fighting sound effects sound dialed in. Hits sound meaty. Blocks have that muffled thud. Reversals come with a nice little snap. It's clean, it's consistent, and most importantly, it keeps the energy up. The audio does exactly what it needs to do to sell the vibe and does it well. Now here's where things get a little bare bones. As mentioned earlier, there are no graphics settings. What you see is what you get, but there are some solid customization features sprinkled in. For starters, you can disable voice chat, which is perfect if you prefer to thrash or get thrashed without the social noise. There are only 2 languages available, English and Spanish. But hey, it's early access, so the fact that it's not English only is already a good sign. You can also tweak your field of view and even customize the spectator camera though. There's even little descriptions under each option that explain what they do, which is something I've seen a lot more of in VR. Settings menus can get overwhelming fast, and this kind of clarity is something developers should continue embracing. Audio settings are fully fleshed out, and surprisingly, I didn't feel the need to change a single thing. No audio spiking, no mix and balance, it just worked. There's also a vignette option that previews exactly what the effect looks like while you're adjusting it. You get a live visual of the intensity right there on screen. Unfortunately, it's not visible here in the footage, but in the headset as you hover over the arrows, it shows you the current vignette strength. The entire menu is nothing crazy, but what's here is smart, clear, and surprisingly thoughtful. Overall, even in its early access state, this game has the right approach to what it's going for. A classic arcade fighter. It all translates surprisingly well to VR. From the second you load into a match, it's all about movement and timing. Your punches land because you throw them at the right times. Your blocks work because you move your hands. It all seems simple, but in VR it's that one-to-one input that makes the action feel authentic. Even though the backgrounds are flat and the story's missing, when the fight is on, you're locked in. That tunnel vision kicks in and all that matters is what's right in front of you. It also helps that the sound design backs it up. Every impact, every taunt, it's all designed to reinforce that you're inside this arcade slugfest. Sure, the immersion breaks a bit when you're stuck in a multiplayer queue, but in the middle of a heated round, Final Fury is one of the few VR fighters that actually feels like it's thinking outside of the box. And for an early access build, that's saying a lot.